Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys swinging by the channel and hanging out with me a little bit. And guys, today we're going to be talking about the two most important variables of bass fishing, the two things you need to know that will allow you to find bass on any lake across the country. It's like after I get done talking with this, when I say this is the two things you need to know and how to apply it to the lake, and you'll be able to get dropped off at any lake in the country that you've never seen before and know where to look for and know what lures to use. So we're going to get into that in today's video. Also, guys, quick reminder, here it is. It's first week of March, and I want to let you guys know one of my favorite March lures, and that's this Megabass 6-inch Magdraft, guys. This is arguably the most famous swim bait in the world today, Megabass Magdraft. They make a bunch of different sizes on it, guys. I'll link it into my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of this video if you guys would like to get some. And if you've never used a Magdraft before, guys, I'd recommend the 6-inch size. They make a 5, 6, 8, and 10-inch. They're all good, you know, situationally, but this is the one you need to get here. So I'm linking the description there if you guys would like to check one out there. Okay, all you regulars that watch the channel here, you hear me talk all the time about two things. You can probably guess what they are: water temperature and water clarity. Guys, when you have a grasp of water temperature and water clarity and the correlation between the two and the correlation between those and the seasons, that's all you need to know, man. That's all you need to know to figure out where you need to be looking at for the fish and, you know, what lures to use. It's just it covers about everything. And it's like I said, you know, it's the foundation of my bass fishing. It's literally the foundation of how I approach bass fishing is those two things. So I want to talk a little bit about what I mean by that and how you can actually apply it to your fishing, because this is all seasonally. It's like when you're talking about water temperature and water clarity, it has to do with every season of the year, because every season of the year has a different application to that. So first of all, let's go through like winter, spring, summer, and fall, and I'll sort of give you guys an example. And this is something that we could talk about all day long. This is like very difficult just to put in a little video here. But when you're talking about water clarity and water temperature, I like to divide it up into water temperatures like 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s as far as degree water temperatures. And then the water clarities anywhere between muddy water, which I consider muddy water like anything under, say, a foot of visibility, and then stained water, which I consider like, you know, 1 to 3 foot, and then clear water or clearer water, which is over 3 foot visibility. And once you sort of compartmentalize it in those particular identifications, that gives you a good foundation to begin with. Okay, so let's just go a little bit about what I like to do different times of the year. When the water temperatures are in the 40s, most of the time I like to have clear water with that cold water. Usually you're gonna get a lot more bites with it. So I look for the part of the lake that has the cleanest water that you know, is going to be cold. So most of the time that's like going to be on the lower end of the lake. Now this is specifically true if that water temperature is like in the low to mid 40s. Now what happens if the water temperature gets in the upper 40s in the winter time of the year and the water gets a little bit more off-colored, not dirty, but off-colored, you can actually catch some fish shallow with that. So that's sort of like an anomaly with that. Let's say, for example, it's, you know, February and the water temperature is 48 degrees and you have water visibility of about 2 feet. You know, that's going to put those fish shallower, and that's going to allow you to catch them like, you know, up shallower on a crankbait or a jig or something like that. Okay, as it goes into the 50s, when you're talking about the temperature range of the 50s, this, in my opinion, is the best time of year to bass fish. It's like the 50s are when the fish are the most active, they're aggressive, you know, the bigger fish are shallower. And it's the same thing with that. It's like if the water temperatures are in the 50s and the water's clear, that's going to give you some other options as far as what to do. Jerkbait fishing, Alabama rig fish can be really good. Again, if you're dealing with clear water and water temperatures in the 50s, most of the time you're on the lower to mid lake. This is also one type of a deal where you can start getting into a little bit more stained water, excuse me, and be really productive. I don't like to fish muddy water when the water's in the 50s, but I do like to fish stained water. Probably one of my favorite situations is to get into about 2 foot of water visibility when the water temperature's in the 50s. And this opens up a wide range of options for you. Spinnerbait, crankbait, jig, jerkbait, chatterbait. This is like when a lot of different stuff works. So if you could give me like one set of water temperatures and water clarities to fish, it would be give me water temperatures in the 50s in the springtime of the year when the water's got some stain to it. I love that situation with that. Okay, now as it gets into the 60s a lot of times, and again in the springtime of the year, and there's some correlation in the fall, but it's a little bit different in the spring. Once it gets into the 60s, same type of thing, clear water, but when you have water temperatures in the 60s, even if the water is really clear, those fish are going to be shallow. In any other situation, if the water's clear, a lot of times those fish will be suspended or deeper. But if you have water temperatures in the 60s in the spring, and I don't care if the water visibility is 10-foot clarity, those fish are going to be shallow. They're going to be in 10 feet or water or less for the most part. And that's the same if it's the water stained or if it's even muddy. I still don't like fishing muddy water when the water temperature's in the 60s. I still think it's a little bit cool, but again, I do like to fish stained water with it. And the difference is like if you're fishing stained water when the water temperatures are in the 60s, this is a real good time to pitch and flip. This is a real good time to fish a swim bait, chatterbait, whatever shallow water aggressive techniques you want to fish. Now it starts to change a little bit when the water temperature gets in the 70s, which is usually like May or June for the most part. That is when muddy water will start to produce once it gets into the 70s. So if you have a situation where the water temperature is in the 70s and your water visibility is muddy, that opens up a good square bill crankbait bite, spinnerbait bite, chatterbait bite, jig bite, just depending upon your cover. The mid-range water visibility when the water temperature is in the 70s, it can cover a wide range of stuff. It could be a swim jig, it could be a top water, it could be any moving bait. That's a real diverse time. It could be deep diving crankbait if it's like in June. And if the water is really clear and the water's in the 70s, this is a really good time to fish a topwater lure. Topwater, when the water is clear and in the 70s, is a really good way to catch them. Now, summertime, when the water gets into the 80s, this is when all 3 water clarities will work, but the dirty water is going to be better. What I look for in the summertime of the year is dirty water. I want to find that water visibility of less than a foot, foot and a half. Again, fishing shallow, fishing power baits, shallow crankbaits, spinner baits, top waters, jigs, creature baits, that type of thing. Same with if it's a little bit stained or off colored. Once you start getting water temperatures in the 80s and you have a stained water condition for like 2 to 3 foot of visibility, it can be really good for like dragging a football head jig, deep diving crankbait. And if you have clear water, like real clear water when the water's in the 80s, you're going to have a lot of fish suspended. Now they're not necessarily going to be real deep because most of the time you have a thermocline when the water's in the 80s, but they're going to be suspended. And this is a really good, time for people to catch them like on a Demiki rig or drop shot or something like that. It's a little bit different in the fall time of the year because your water temperatures are going to start falling the same way that they were rising in the springtime of the year, but the situation's a little bit different. Once those water temperatures start falling down into the 50s and the 60s in the fall time of the year, again, I'm looking for off-colored stained water unless there's a good topwater bite. If you've got water temperatures in the 50s and 60s in the fall time of the year, they can be really good for like a walking topwater, buzz bait, something like that can be really good. If you've got stained or off-colored water, this is a great time of year to catch them shallow crank and lipless crankbait, square bill crankbaits, anything along that area can be really good. Also in the fall time of the year, those fish will move deeper once that thermocline breaks up. So if you are fishing when the water temperatures are in the 50s and 60s in like October, November, and December, those fish can be as deep as like 50 or 60 feet in real clear water. And you can catch them like on the football head jig, spoons, any type of deep bottom bait can be really good. So that's just sort of an overall, just a real foundational, broad little tip on water clarity and water temperature. There's a lot more to it, guys. There's a lot more details we could get into, but I don't want this video to go on forever. So we'll just tap into that a little bit as time goes on. So hope it helps out. We'll talk later.